its 7th season, the Lapped Traffic Podcast has brought you over 300 shows, driver and media interviews, awesome stories and entertainment, and one of the coolest fantasy leagues around. Get ready for another exciting season. Sit back, relax, and try not to get lapped. Now, here's your host, the Professor, Brendan Crown.
Oh, yeah. What is up, Lap Traffic Nation? Welcome to episode 305 of the Lap Traffic Podcast. I am your host, the Professor Brandon Crowd. You don't typically equate boring and Sin City in the same sentence, but a lot of you had that impression this past weekend. We will get into that here in just a bit. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I was on dad duty all weekend. Lindsay had a girls trip, left Thursday afternoon. Alden and I picked her up at the airport and got back about 30 laps into segment 1 on Sunday. So I missed about the first half of segment 1. All I have to say is a 1-year-old and a 40-year-old all by themselves for 3 days. I can sum that up in one word for you: tired. That would be the word of the weekend for me, but had a great time. I mean, some daddy son time was awesome. We went to breakfast, we went to lunch, we went to the store, we hung out. Anything to keep him occupied, I was all about doing. And there's that. Yeah. He helped me prep and cook the pork butt, which was awesome, by the way. Thank you for those that encourage my pictures of all of my food that I love to cook. And yeah, we did all that, watched some racing. Thankfully, the in-laws came over on Saturday night to watch him for a couple hours so Dad could go out for a bit, which was awesome. So busy weekend, and here we are back to the grind. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's show, episode 304, with Derek Cope, who talked about his new book and podcast. Great to have him on, as well as ARCA Daytona winner Greg Van Alst, and also in the ARCA series last week, Sean Core, and he's also the co-owner of Empire Racing. Great to get their takes on things as well. Last Thursday, hopped on Twitter Spaces with Brian Newdorf. It was his first time doing that. Had a bunch of people hop in, which was great, and looked forward to coming back at some point later this week with Aaron Studwell. So be on the lookout for that on social media. Let's see. There's still time to sign up for Lap Traffic Fantasy. All you got to do is send an email to fantasylaptraffic@gmail.com. Get you registered and all that good stuff. And, you're a three-week deficit, but, man, as you'll hear later on in the fantasy segment, it's a tight battle, and it's close, but it's not out of it's not out of reach by any means. So come play if you want. Okay, tonight, very excited because good friend of mine, like really good friend of mine, not just saying that, like legit friend of mine from Yahoo Sports, Dan Wetzel is going to be on, and we're going to have a football-themed show because you can't have Dan Wetzel on and not talk a little football, as well as later in the show for the Catching Up with the Lap Traffic Podcast, third installment of getting your guys' takes, first-hand takes from being at the racetrack. Former NFL player and competitor on Next Level Chef, Mark McMillian, was at the race this past weekend. And, sometimes all you got to do is just reach out to people. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So he's going to come on. We're going to, how do you not talk football with someone that played in the NFL for 8 years? And so Mark went to Alabama. He played for a handful of teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a funny twist that I'm going to work the Detroit Lions into that, and it's pretty interesting, and I can't wait to get his take on that. So that's later on in the show, fantasy, all that good stuff. Let's dive right in. Let's get Mr. Dan Wetzel back on the line. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, joining me on the line, making his third appearance on the show. He's written books, he's produced, he covers it all. I have the honor of calling him a friend from Yahoo Sports. Welcome back to the Lap Traffic Podcast, Dan Wetzel. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
I am good. What's new? How are things?
Haven't seen you since your birthday party.
I know, right? It's crazy to think that was 3 months ago.
I know, it's been too long.
Yeah. Listen, so I know it's been a minute since you've been on, so there's a lot of new listeners. So Dan and I, we go back, I think like 8-10 years now, when Bob introduced us at 24 Seconds, and then there were some opening day games and some other events and all of that good stuff. And, you know, it's been a ride, and I'm honored to have you on the show.
Yeah, I don't think you're doing as much bar time now that you got a 1-year-old.
No, that's an accurate story.
Yeah, the mornings start coming real quick when they're there waiting for you.
Well, Lindsay was out of town over the weekend, and my in-laws came over to give me a little reprieve on Saturday night, but that still did not stop him from getting up at 6:30 on Sunday morning. So
no. I think they know when you go out.
Yeah,
and they,
yeah. It's almost more on purpose that they do it too. So, but yeah, man. So let's see. You were on the Drew and Mike podcast a couple weeks ago, and you do big time stuff. So I can't thank you enough for coming on the Lap Traffic podcast, talking a little football, a little NASCAR, and all that good stuff.
Always good. Always happy to come on. This is big time. Let's do it.
Well, we're going to talk some NASCAR. We'll save that for the end. We got to talk some football because tonight's kind of a hybrid crossover show, because I've got later on in the show, Mark McMillian, who played for the Eagles and the Chiefs, was on Next Level Chef with Gordon Ramsay, and he was at the race this weekend. So I'm going to catch up with him, and nice. I've got a stat with him. Like, he played the Lions twice in the playoffs, and the Lions have only been in the playoffs 3 times since then. So I think he needs to come out of retirement, and maybe the Lions could make their way to the playoffs.
How'd those go, though? It didn't go so well for the Lions.
No, they definitely did not go very well for the Lions at all. But speaking of the Lions, they are the favorites according to Vegas for the NFC North right now. I mean, it's draft talk, and draft talk is always gets big in Metro Detroit, because that's really all we've had to be able to talk about is the draft. So what do you think of how the Lions ended up finishing their season, and how things are shaping up for them in the offseason right now?
Yeah, although they're definitely the favorite, and Aaron Rodgers could be headed to the Jets, which would get him out of there. That certainly doesn't hurt their chances. They finally started playing kind of what, at least to the potential, some of the potential that you thought they would have had after that we didn't see in the disastrous start. But I thought the really promising thing was Goff's play. I mean, obviously the young defense, the defensive line, the number of draft picks at not only like Hutchinson, but guys deeper in the draft that are playing well. The idea that Jared Goff can be more than a placeholder and maybe good enough to get him to the playoffs and win a playoff game is, I think, pretty exciting for the Lions. I don't think they have to go out and draft a quarterback here and spend a valuable draft pick on a QB.
Sure.
I think Goff's good enough. And so, that's a huge advantage. So they've got a bunch of guys in the top 100 picks, and they really have a chance to bolster this in a big way and get a lot of really good talent. So I'd love to see him add one more defensive lineman and just have a killer defensive line that seems to be shaping up with Hutchinson and Houston and everybody else.
Well, we saw what them having the highest paid offensive line last year did. It allowed them to go out there and score points, which they did, So there is something to be said about a high paid, whether offensive or defensive line. And I think that would be amazing. The thing that, when I look back, and it's frustrating, but not the typical frustration from a Lions fan. And that is, how many games, those first 6 games that they lost by, a field goal basically, and just one more of those games would have gotten them into the playoffs last year, because you're not talking about too many teams, even like, your Tampa Bay's, your Kansas City Chiefs, like to go on the stretch that they went on to close out the season. Teams don't do that. Like, that takes a good team to be able to go and do that. And, I really hope they can carry that momentum going into next year.
Yeah, they better. I mean, the Metro Detroit is fired up for it. It's like they haven't had anything for so long, and they obviously had some good years under Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and some different times when they made the playoffs and were real contenders. But I don't know, this just feels a little different. It's a really likable team, likable coach, the whole thing, and so just that anticipation is so much for the Lions, man. If they ever, it's amazing. Like, they're a team. I mean, fans will get greedy really quick, but just winning one playoff game would mean so much to Lions fans. Just hosting and winning. Oh my God. They could win the division and beat somebody at home, which really isn't that much to ask. Jacksonville did it last year, right? Like, just do that. The NFC is garbage. It's not that good. There's just that would be so big for the Lions, and so exciting for the Lions. It's amazing.
City would lose its mind. There is no doubt about that. Dan, did you go to the Super Bowl this year?
I did.
Yeah. How was it? I mean, break it down. I mean, we all know how the game was. Right. The game was great, but I've done the media side thing, obviously getting into a NASCAR race, which is obviously different from, a fan attending a race. Well, what's it like as a media guy getting into the Super Bowl? Like, what's that weekend look like for you?
Well, it's a whole week. So you go as a media, you go on Monday before the game, and they have that, what they call opening night, but used to be called media day. And that huge throng at the, we did it at the basketball stadium, where the Suns play downtown Phoenix, and, those throngs of media and all of that. And so it's a long week of hype and talk and looking for angles and different things. But Phoenix was, great weather, so that was good. It's fairly convenient because we were downtown Phoenix, and the city's not really that crowded and stuff. So Waste Management Open was going on at the exact same time, so it was a really wild weekend out there.
That's become a thing. That tournament.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, huge, and they get huge attendance. Like six-figure attendance every day. So you'd be in, like, I think it was like Thursday or Friday. I was just downtown, and it's night, and I see this like couple guys, and you can tell they're kind of got a little too much sun, and it's about 9:00, and they're stumbling about. They're cooked.
So what?
I'm like, well, they went to the golf, man.
I mean, obviously you think of the big, Augusta and all that kind of stuff when you think of golf. What's turned this thing into like the current day Happy Gilmore of golf?
Yeah, I think they just embrace the party. They have that 16th hole, and they've got, I think it's like 30,000 seats around that hole.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And so everyone's partying there. They have DJs. They just have bars set up outside everywhere. I haven't been, but I've seen it. And I think they just embrace the, make it a bachelor's weekend, make it a bachelorette weekend, a party, whatever it is, just come and it's golf that's a little different. It's okay to be loud and wild, and they've really turned themselves into a huge event. And the PGA has kind of responded, I thought, pretty well by now. I don't know if they make them or, it's highly encouraged that their best players play in it. So why not have your top players compete in because, it's not like NASCAR where every racer drives every week.
Sure.
I remember talking years ago to Jimmy Johnson and he'd be like, man, I wish we had it like golf where you just,
show up for the ones you want to.
Yeah, 10 races or something, because NASCAR is such a grind. I mean, it's, we're not going to overplay it. These guys aren't coal miners, but like week after week after week on the road, 4 or 5, at least 5 nights a week. racing. And unlike any other sport, you have to be sharp, or I mean, you can get not just seriously injured, but you can be killed.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not you. If you're mentally checked out of a golf tournament, oh well,
right?
You just don't score well.
Yeah, you check out at a NASCAR race.
Yeah, after backstretch at Talladega or Daytona, and it's going to end really poorly.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I don't know if anybody ever gets the credit, because I don't even know how you really even quantify it. Like you can say it and be like, oh yeah, it's really hard, but like I don't even know if we know how hard.
No.
I mean, these guys have to be on every and then some of them obviously can do it, and there'd always be the guys that would, you get your like Tony Stewart. Not only would they race like the Saturday race and whatever they were calling the whatever
Busch,
whatever
yeah
Busch Series, whatever, they just add another race. Like, my God, you'd throw in another 300 miles, but then you'd see them like Wednesday, like dirt track racing midgets in like Indiana or some Ohio. Yeah, you're like, these guys are just built to race. They just can't do it any other way. But
Kyle Busch did it this past weekend. He ran
Kyle Busch.
He ran the truck, the Xfinity, and the Cup race. So
so some of them are built for it, and great, good for them. Yeah, truck race, midweek races, whatever. But I think there's like a guy like Jimmy Johnson was like, because he never did any of that. He just would do the Cup race, and I do remember him talking about like, man, that wouldn't be so bad if you just like, maybe you don't go to, I don't know, whatever.
Right. Yeah. I'll show up for this
Delaware
one, but not
or something.
one.
Richmond. Yeah. Just sort of some race. It's like, I'll take that week off, see my kids. But, so yeah, they make them all go to that. And, so it was an active weekend, but we were busy. Lot to do. It was a good game, and Super Bowl is always fun.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned Jimmy Johnson. He retired from NASCAR a couple years ago and went and did the IndyCar thing, and now is back in NASCAR, co-owner with Richard Petty. And he ran the 500, Daytona 500, a couple weeks ago, and he's gonna run a handful of races and get back out there at the track every once in a while. So he's doing what he wanted to do, just won't be able to compete for a championship doing it that way.
Right, and that's back when he was doing that, it was all. I mean, what are there 40? Is it 43 weeks?
So NASCAR's 36.
Including the All-Star race, 36. But 36. Then there's the All-Star race.
Yep.
Does that count? That
no, that's separate.
Okay.
That's 37. So that's 37. Then you got the race
and
before
Daytona's
Daytona.
A couple weeks. Yep. Daytona's kind of and then so that's a long season. I guess I had too many, but that's a long season. But yeah, he's doing what he wants. But obviously, in golf, you could just come back and compete in the majors, and then you can still qualify enough to play in the FedEx Championship, which obviously isn't as big of a deal as winning. And that's why winning the Cup is so big, because it's not, you have to be great numerous times, but you also have to survive the it's like almost a battle of attrition.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
You have to do it all. There's no shortcuts to winning the Cup, and that's why it's such a treasured event, where I don't think it's as big of a deal in golf.
Fair enough. Dan, I don't think you made it to the Daytona 500 this year, but you've been to a few of those bad boys, haven't you?
I probably covered about 10 of them. Yeah.
No
I used to love it. I wish we were still covering it. Yeah.
So Yahoo doesn't do any, there's no love over there anymore, eh?
No, we still cover it. Nick Bromberg does a lot, and Jay Busby will write some, and we'll do some, but we used to cover we used to have a pretty big presence at Daytona.
Okay.
And even across the year at different races. I mean, I used to always cover the last one at Homestead, usually in one or two kind of, Arizona between. Used to be big, or Phoenix. Yeah. Like different ones that in the Cup chase that were significant. Texas sometimes. I don't know which ones would kind of be pressure points. A lot of Phoenix. I remember that.
Okay.
But, so we still do some, but I have not gone. Unfortunately, I wish the ratings would pop back up to make it worth it. Yeah.
Well, I tell you,
loved it.
I've been trying to get Bob from our favorite place, 24 Seconds, to a race. Maybe one of these days we can load up in his RV and I can get get you guys out to Michigan for.
That's right. He's got the RV. He's got no excuse.
No, he does not.
Yeah, he's got his little fifth wheel. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. We gotta do that. We gotta make that happen.
I tell people all the time, like, okay, two things you want to do is you want to go to a race, or even if you're at home, pick a driver you're going to root for.
Yep.
Because it focuses you, and then watch the whole race. But particularly if you go is better. But it's a hard sport to just kind of jump in for a couple minutes and be like, what's going on?
Right.
You have to watch the whole race, and that's hard in modern times. Hockey's a little like that too. You kind of have to watch the whole game, and we're built to, hey, even football, it's like, well, it's the last 5 minutes. Mahomes has got the ball. I'll watch now, or what's going to happen at the end of an NBA basketball game or something. You can kind of, it's all going to come down to this. But NASCAR is a sport to really, I think, fall in love with. You need to have a rooting interest, and you got to concentrate for the whole 3-4 hours.
No doubt about that. That's for sure. Dan, what do you got? What are you working on? What's coming up from Dan Wetzel that people can be on the lookout for?
Well, we got a lot of NFL free agency, a lot of college football. We have the College Football Inquirer podcast twice a week. So right now, a lot of football, even though it doesn't seem like football season, but it's always football season.
It's always football season. I am convinced that it's always football season. All right, I want to wrap with this. I gotta bring up Jim Harbaugh because it wouldn't be me talking football if I didn't bring up Jim Harbaugh. What do you think? What's going on with Jim in terms of committing to Michigan, but then doing these interviews every year, and then there's a lot of back and forth. Is it Jim? Is it Michigan? What's Dan Wetzel's take on what's going on there?
It's definitely Jim, but it's Jim is so you cannot predict him, and so he probably could have had that Denver job, or he got offered the Denver job and turned it down. So he's talking to teams, but then not taking the job or not pursuing it all the way, and when he said he wouldn't do that, and it would make sense not to, just for recruiting purposes. So
right,
who knows? But I think he's committed to Michigan, and it's got a really good team next year. And
my God,
they gotta keep recruiting well. But they're really good in the transfer portal and filling in gaps and things like that. So some of these new rules, I think, have really helped him. Where, I think when you get to the transfers, kids who are 20, kids are 16, 17, making college choices, they're, your mindset's a little different than when you're 21.
Sure.
And, at 21, it's like, I need a really good coach, and I need a really good system, and I want to win. And maybe the education and all those things really favors him. And his, they're less into like how fun was the visit, right?
Sure.
Or you have kids, picking schools on colors,
right?
How close am I to mom, right? Things like that. How close am I to home? Yeah, at 21, you don't care. You're like, does this guy know what he's doing? And that's the one thing Harbaugh has always done, is he's a great football coach, and so it's interesting to see him going. But this will be obviously a big year, especially if McCarthy can develop and play a little better in the postseason.
I'm with you there 100%. Dan, where can everybody follow you on social media and keep up with all things Dan Wetzel?
At Dan Wetzel on Twitter, and always over at Yahoo Sports.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, hanging out. It was great to catch back up with you on the show, and hopefully some drinks soon at the old stomping grounds, 24 seconds.
Hey, you're the one with the 1-year-old. You need it.
I do need it.
You deserve it and need it.
Yes.
Yeah. Should have thought of this before, but now you're pot committed now.
Absolutely. All right, man. We'll catch you soon.
We'll talk to you.
See you, man.
Yep. Take
Later.
care.
Oh, the legendary Dan Wetzel. I mean, everybody knows who Dan Wetzel is. That's the best part about it. Everybody's read something from Dan Wetzel, or you watch the Aaron Hernandez piece on Netflix a year or two ago when that came out. It's just so awesome, which is great to have him on the show. And all right, I think it's time for me to dive into a little bit about this past weekend at Las Vegas. All right, just a couple quick highlights that I want to touch upon and keep things rolling here with the show tonight, because still got a lot more to do. Kyle Busch, Truck Series, truck win number 63. 38% of his starts, he's in victory lane. Like, that's unbelievable. Then you look at his 102 Xfinity wins. It's a 28% victory lane percentage there. And then Cup, 61 wins, 10% of the time. I mean, 10%. Even if you had 10% in the trucks that as a win percentage, that would be like, something to write home about. 227 wins total combined across all three series now. Now, listen, I know there's a lot of heat and a lot of, negativity surrounding when guys like Kyle Busch go get into the Xfinity series, the truck series, and I'll tell you, I used to be one of those people. I'm not even going to deny that aspect of things. But once NASCAR came out with limitations, to me, I was able to get behind that a lot more. And I also will give 100% credit to a good friend of the show, Jeff Striegel, for setting me on the right path when he broke it down in terms of, are they going to get out there and are they going to dominate? More than likely, right? But two things. One, when you ask the drivers, what it's like to be out on the track behind these guys, they're able to learn. They're able to see when they're lifting in the corners, if they're behind, they're able to learn a lot from these guys like Kyle Busch that go out there. And the second thing is just what it does from a sponsorship perspective, and not even so much for that particular driver. Kyle Busch has gone on record multiple times and said him being in the truck helps keep somebody else in one of his other full-time trucks, on a full-time basis, because, they just want to be able to say, hey, I had Kyle Busch out there, and, the 38% chance, there's going to be a die-cast made of that truck, and, promotional stuff and all that surrounding that, which is why they come into the sport, to sponsor. So from that regard, I mean, it's just good for the sport when they go out there and do that every once in a while. And like I said, especially with the limitations that NASCAR put into place a couple years ago, I have gotten on board with this so much more over the years of, hey, this is a cool thing. And also, too, let's look at it from the, hey, maybe you can only go to the truck race. Maybe you can only go to the Xfinity race because, hey, things are expensive, right? Inflation's real, so, maybe you could afford the whatever the $25, general admission is on Friday night or Saturday, but not the $100 grandstand ticket on Sunday. And you want to see Kyle Busch run. Well, you know what? Now you can at an affordable price. There's so many different ways to look at it as to why it's a good thing. And I mean, on top of all of those things, you just got to appreciate greatness. And there is greatness. We are witnessing history in terms of something we may never see before, especially because of the limited starts. We're not going to see someone go out and win 200 Cup races, right? And because of the limitations now, you're not going to see someone go out and win 100 Xfinity races, because either A, they're not going to be good enough to cut it that long, or they'll move up into the Cup Series. And again, you ain't going to win 200 Cup races in your career, like Petty, right? Like, we haven't seen anybody come close to Senior, to Gordon, Jimmy Johnson even, So we're witnessing history and something that probably is never going to be repeated. So take it in, enjoy it. 10 years, 15 years from now, when you're talking to your friends, your kids, whatever, you're going to be able to reflect back and go, I remember when. And that's the cool thing, I think, anyway. So there's my rant on Kyle Busch in a positive way there. Austin Hill, Xfinity Series, from helping turn around Hattori Racing in the Truck Series to picking up win number 2 in 3 races this year with RCR. Had a good year with RCR last year as well. Back-to-back season openers at Daytona for him. Austin Hill's going to be a force to be reckoned with, I think, which is awesome because it's not just the plate tracks now. To go out there, win like he did at the mile-and-a-half track, RCR, they're moving and grooving. Now, I got to talk about my man Cole Custer. You know, he dominated the first half of Auto Club, couldn't close it out, okay, and then struggled this past weekend, 12th place finish, and, you know, hey, Brandon, 12th place ain't bad. It ain't bad, but, you know, seeing where Cole Custer came from when he was in the Xfinity Series, battling it out, you know, with Tyler Reddick when they had 7-8 wins apiece and competing for an Xfinity Series championship, struggling in Cup, and now going, you know, we've seen it work for a couple guys, right? You know, we've seen Allgaier, who went back down to the Xfinity Series, ton of success. We've seen it with AJ Allmendinger, who actually stepped away from the sport and now, you know, had success in Xfinity, now back full-time in Cup. That's one of the rarities to the, you know, to go back to Cup, and let's see what he's able to do. You know, this is a pivotal year for Cole Custer. I obviously, you know, I want to see him do well, of course, but, you know, and I know it's only 3 races in, but I think just from a mental standpoint, it could be real easy to fall into a slump if some success isn't found there quickly in that 00, which I hope they get, and maybe they'll get it this weekend in Phoenix. All right. William Byron dominated that race. Larson would have won that thing had that caution not come out. Truex just got swallowed alive staying out there on the restart. You know, was it boring? Was it not boring? I mean, I can see that take 100%. You know, I think we expected a little bit more. You know, I know they're working on some things still from a package perspective on what they're going to be bringing to the 1.5 miles. And, you know, first 1.5 mile race of the year, teams were feeling things out, I feel like, too, you know. So I personally would not hold what we got this past weekend to every 1.5 miles. We had some great 1.5 mile races last year, and I think we will as well this year. But that leads me to my question that I put out there to you guys on Twitter. What are your takeaways from Vegas this weekend and the rest of the 1.5 mile tracks? Let's see what you guys had to say. All right, Scott at 1985 Wagner. Bow tie domination, not too surprising. 2311 finally had both cars finish. Track character at the other 1.5 milers hopefully help average opinion. Not an impressive first race. I feel you. Andrew at Racing Cans, and I love this one. Worst non-Texas 1.5 mile race in this next gen era. Not going to worry about one data point though at this time. Colder conditions didn't help with a wider contact patch tire. I love that response. That's beautiful. I love it. Bob at Jumpy Bob. Check out the weather report before you put in your picks for a race weekend. I love it. Chris at Chris Oleg 29. It's going to be a long couple of weeks and months without Chase for me. Yeah, that's going to be rough because that was Chase has been pretty unstoppable at the drawing a blank at the road courses. There we go. I got you. And the 1.5 miles. Colin at Colin _ cars. It was a race. That's about it. Fords looked like they were lacking this week. Don't know if it was a car issue or if they just missed the setups for race trim since they qualified well. Chevy looks tough to beat this year. They've won all 3 races so far. Isn't that crazy? EJ at the real EJ Gold. Snooze fest. Then my picks wreck out. -3 out of 10 would not recommend. I love it. Ethan at pokefan _ 2844. Not the best race, not the best race or the worst ever. I'd say a solid 7. Jason at JA Stone 29. Ford has a little bit of work to do. Yes, they do. And Jeremy at lost _ 10mm socket. RCR is off to a strong start this year. That they are. Austin Hill, man. I think 5-6 wins for him. No doubt about that. Mick at GoDucks5 _ Mick. Fastest car lost the lead on a pit stop. Fastest car got the lead back on a pit stop. Hashtag pit stops. Love it, Mick. Patty at PJ Coy. Hope the next races are better. Nothing outstanding. And Ryan at Ryan _ Goodrum. Top 10 Justin Haley. Just up on the wheel all day. Great job. Hope they can do that on all the 1.5 mile tracks this season. Yeah, no doubt about that. All right. there you have that. What do you say we do a little lap traffic social media? Everybody make sure you check out the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com, Facebook, Lap Traffic Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all at Lap Traffic PC. If you've made it this far into the show, please leave a review. Tell your friends they can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, or their favorite hosting sites. Don't forget about the giveaway. We finally eclipsed 7,000 followers, which is awesome. And I've got an awesome NBC Lap Traffic prize pack to give away at 7,100 followers. Let's keep it going. Let's see. We got some shout outs here. Will Hollowell, 24, photographer, Go Dogs, and I'm guessing a William Byron fan. Dale, Junior Fan 88 at Junior Nation Fan 388, helps firefighters with PTSD. That's absolutely awesome. Costa Oil at Costa Oil CO and Costa Oils. Go get a 10-minute oil change, and they sponsor Ryan Ellis, which is awesome. So go give them a follow and get your oil change there. And JS Diecast at JS Diecast Cars, Diecast Car Collector from Kentucky, Kyle Busch fan. Don't forget, I've got stickers and koozies to give away for free. All you have to do is fill out the contact page, shoot me a DM, whatever. I will send them out to you. I got hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, all that good stuff on the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com. Go check it out. Don't forget, be on the lookout on Twitter for an announcement for this week when you can catch the legendary Aaron Studwell on the Twitter, not on the show, on Twitter Spaces. We'll come hang out for about a half hour or so, chat with you guys, and we'll find out what we can expect weather-wise at Phoenix this weekend. And to close out the to close out the social media segment, the very brief social media segment this week, huge shout out to the Detroit local, the Drew and Mike podcast, who actually gave me a follow. Like, these guys I grew up listening to on local radio. They are what get me through every morning, and they basically took their morning show over to the podcast format, and they do like 3 hours daily, Sunday to Thursday, that's a lot of content to be putting out there, which is great. They are just the best group of guys, and Trudy, can't forget Trudy Daniels, that I love to listen to. And they gave me a follow. That may be one of the cooler follows outside of some of the drivers and teams within NASCAR that follow me. They followed today, which is just so cool. So thanks for the shout out and the follow, guys. Appreciate you. Well, you guys don't do shout outs because that's a Tom Mazaway thing, which if anyone listens to them, you'll get the two references that I just dropped there. But thank you guys. I appreciate that very much. All right, it is time for this week's Catching Up with Lap Traffic, a new segment this year, third installment coming at you here in just a second, where I am talking to you guys who have been to this past weekend's race and getting your firsthand experiences of what you thought of the track, facilities, all that good stuff. And this week is very special because to join me is former NFL player Mark McMillian, who also was just recently on Level Up Chef. I get a tongue twister there with Gordon Ramsay, and we're going to talk some football, some NASCAR, and all that good stuff. So here we go with this week's Catching Up with Lap Traffic. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, joining me on the line, making his debut on the show, he is an Emmy Award winner, recently on Next Level Chef, played in the NFL with the Eagles and the Chiefs. Welcome to the Lap Traffic Podcast, Mark McMillian. Mark, what's up, brother? How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. I appreciate you having me on. I know this is a different space. Everybody's like, NASCAR? Like, how did you get into NASCAR? But, it's something that evolved over the last couple of years, so I'm excited to be on the show.
That's awesome, man. No, I'm excited to have you on. Thank you very much for coming on. We'll get to Las Vegas here in a few minutes, but how long have you been a fan, and what drew you to the sport?
I've always been a fan, even when I was a young guy. Back in the day, my cousins, they lived in Orange County, and there was I can't remember the guy's name. I was like 8 or 9 years old. I think it was Pearson was his last name.
Oh David Pearson.
Pearson. Yeah. So he lived around the corner from my cousins when we were little, and he always had these cars racing up and down the streets. And as a kid, you just hear the vibration, and you hear you get the noise. You're like, wow, that guy's a NASCAR driver. But coming from my neighborhood in South Central LA, there was no NASCAR interest. So,
Sure.
We just gravitated to basketball and football. So over the last couple of years, partnered up with a buddy of mine, Anthony Martin out of Philadelphia, who has a urban youth racing school that's actually partners with Kyle Larson. So, last 2 years ago when he won the Cup, he invited me. I went to Philadelphia. Kyle was there doing the interviews. I got a chance to take a picture with the Cup. And, it just kind of blew up. Everybody's like, how did you get a picture with the Cup?
That's
how did you get a picture with, Kyle Larson? So, it's been a good run, and, just trying to get more into the sport because these guys are athletes too. When
Absolutely.
you look at this sport and see that these guys got to be in these cars for hours on end and have to drive those automobiles at speeds up to 200 miles an hour.
With
it's nuts.
Barely a sheet of paper between the next car, right? Like that's the crazy thing. I saw your picture with Larson from the track this weekend. That's awesome. That's a cool backstory there on. So I imagine is Larson's your driver? Were you rooting for him on Sunday when that last caution came out? Man,
I was rooting for Kyle. I went to the race last year here in Vegas. I went to the race in Arizona last year, and
okay.
He didn't win either one. So I was like, "Am I a bad luck omen?" And then watching the race today, watching the race over the weekend, the 24 car, man, he was, he was rolling. So that one little mistake, and I always think like, should he have pitted? Should he have used one tire, two tires? It was so close. Getting off that pit row, and that kind of cost them the victory.
Absolutely, man. That's I'm glad you get into it, man. That's so cool. All right, I gotta change directions here. We got to turn right here for a minute, and we got to talk a little football here. All right, so first I got to start with this. So you played with the Eagles and the Chiefs, who are both in the Super Bowl this year. Who are you rooting for, man?
I was rooting for the Eagles. A lot of people like, what are you doing? But I was like, hey, get drafted in the 10th round, number 272. There was many coaches and GM said, there's no way you're going to get drafted. You're too small. You're not going to make it in the league. And the Philadelphia Eagles took a chance on me, coming out of Alabama. And things just worked out. I was a 4-year starter there in Philadelphia. And obviously after that, things just kind of materialized. People were like, wow, this guy really can play. And being in Philadelphia, if you can play in Philly, right. Especially the defense that we had back in the day with Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Eric Allen, Seth Joyner, there were so many amazing players, Randall Cunningham on that team that, I was just a kid in the candy store. Every time I went out to play, I just played with a lot of passion, a lot of energy. And that's just the way I live my life. And I think that's why things are continue to happen for me over the years, just moving away from the footballs aspect, and now NASCAR, grilling, so it's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm doing. But I'm honored, I'm blessed for this opportunity to be able to share this platform, because there could be some kid in their neighborhood, inner city neighborhood, to be like, I'm not interested in NASCAR. Why would I want to go to a NASCAR race? And hopefully he'll hear their story and be like, yo, Mark McMillian went to a NASCAR race, hung out with the guys, and had a blast at the race.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. I love it. All right. So for everyone listening, so Mark's got a Alabama shirt on, and Roll Tide. Okay. So here's, I'm based out of Detroit, so I've got to tie in my team, Michigan, and the Detroit Lions. So I was born and raised Michigan fan. Alabama and Michigan have played only 4 times, and the inaugural time was in 1988, the Hall of Fame Bowl. By the numbers, it looks like you were on that team at that time. Did you play Michigan?
I did not play Michigan. I missed them by, I think, a year or two. I came out in 91, 92.
Okay.
So I did go to the bowl game when they played in Florida, when Charles Woodson, his years when he was at Michigan. So I did get a chance to see the greatness as his youth age. So, I didn't get a chance to play against Michigan, but I did get a chance to play against Penn State. So that was that was pretty cool. That's coming from California. And all of a sudden I'm at Alabama.
Yeah. All right. So I messaged you last night. I'm like, I'm going to tie in the Detroit Lions, and I'm sure you're like, what the hell? How the hell are you going to tie me and the Detroit Lions together? So being a Detroit Lions fan, a season ticket holder, like, all we can do really is look back at the past because we haven't done much, right? Now, this past year was a great year for us, but so, you played for Washington. So 1995, you were with Philly. 99, you played with Washington. The Lions played those two teams those 2 years in the playoffs. And now here's the crazy thing. The Lions have only made the playoffs 3 times since then. So could you please come out of retirement and go play with the team, because then we might make the playoffs.
I don't think they like me in Detroit. You go back to that game when we played them, and I think it was '94 when Lomas Brown was like, we're going to go down and beat them. They had the number 1 scoring offense with Mitchell. You had Johnny Morton. You had, Herman Moore.
Yeah.
You had Brett Perryman. You had Barry Sanders. I had an opportunity to see Barry a couple of weeks ago at their premiere with the show that he did with the Hall of Fame's players as well as the Heisman Trophy winners. And I did whisper in his ear. I said, what happened to you guys in that playoff game? He's like, man, I still have nightmares about that game. So I don't think the Detroit fan base is too happy with me still. I still play that clip of making the plays against Scott Mitchell, because they just came in. Like I said, they had the number 1 scoring offense.
Yeah.
And, when they have Barry Sanders on the back end, that we had to be ready. So we were definitely ready to play them, and we came out on the victorious side.
I love it, man. All right, let's make another hard turn. Next Level Chef, man. How did you get into that? Like, how does something like that happen for someone like you?
I'm still in shock that it happened. It went way back till I think February of last year. A young man was messaging me through Facebook and say, "Hey, are you Mark McMillian?" And of course, I'm like, "You can look at my profile. Right. Yes, I'm Mark McMillian." So he just said, "Hey, we're doing a casting for Next Level Chef with Gordon Ramsay. Would you be interested?" And I'm thinking, like, it's almost like being drafted. The Eagles. I'm gonna give you a little snippet. When the Eagles drafted me, I saw my name go on the bottom of the ticker. I get the phone call, and I'm thinking somebody playing a prank on me. Wow. So I hang up the phone. I hung up the phone, and then I look at the ticker again. I see my name go across again, and then the coach calls back and say, "Hey, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. We would like to draft you." And I was like, "Oh, I had a bad connection in my dorm room. My apologies. I'm excited to be an Eagle." So it was almost kind of like that same vibe. Getting a message, Gordon Ramsay,
right?
I just cook in my backyard. I'm just a griller, and
I hear you.
Obviously, it just took a turn of its own, and I just started making different things around the house, worked on my plating, and, just went through the interview process. I think they has like 15,000 applicants.
Wow.
That applied for this show. And I'm thinking, like, the chances of me going against some guys and females who are actual chefs.
Sure.
These are actually real chefs that work in restaurants. This is their passion. This is their career. But anytime I put my mind to something, I was like, hey, if I'm going to get selected to the show, I'm gonna go out there and do the best that I can and try to learn along the process and just see how it goes. And
sure.
Obviously made it onto the show. And then when we get there, I was on Gordon Ramsay's team. So it couldn't get any better.
Right. All right, real quick, and then we'll wrap with some NASCAR stuff. What's your go-to, like, all right, if I'm cooking for somebody and I want to impress, what's Mark making? What's the go-to?
People always ask me that. I make anything.
I'll
try anything, especially being on this show. If you watch the show, the platform comes down, you got like 30 seconds to grab whatever you can grab.
Yep. And
whatever you grab, you got 45 minutes to make that dish, the best dish that you can make, and try to survive in the competition. So whatever I have in the kitchen, I'll whip it up and make it taste like a 4-course meal.
I love it.
But like I said, I'm a griller. I'm a barbecue guy. But lately I've been doing some fish, some chicken, some really nice little cuisines. I've been doing Chinese food of lately because that was part of the challenge. I got knocked out doing Chinese food. So I said, I'm going to continue to dive into this Chinese culture and try to make as many Chinese dishes as I can and just try to expand my brand.
I love it. All right, so let's wrap with some NASCAR. You were at Las Vegas. Talk about your experience. Getting to the facility, arriving there, the fans, interacting with that. Sum up your trip to the race this past weekend.
Amazing. I get so excited. When the season's over, I look for the schedule. I want to go to Daytona. I missed out on that. I know they talk about Talladega's a huge one. Being in Alabama, it's a huge race. So just the whole week leading up to it, I was just excited. I was tweeting and talking about I'm going to be at the races, and everybody just started catching on. Like, he's like really serious about this NASCAR. And then, just leading up to it, going to the garages, seeing how they work on the cars. Got a chance to talk to Kyle before the race. You probably see that picture of me standing next to his car in pit row. So got a chance to talk to him, his right-hand man, his manager as well. We text all the time. He's a huge golfer. So just being excited about it, and just try to integrate more people into the sport, try to bring more people of color to the sport, because it's a sport that was known to traditionally to not be catered to, different cultures. And now you look at different drivers who are African-American drivers. You look at the pit crew.
Absolutely.
These pit guys are former players, like former NFL players, former college players who are built forward tough. And just to see the whole the dynamic of the thing just work out. Like I said, I have a blast.
NASCAR really takes very seriously. They've invested into that with their Drive for Diversity program. To put it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. And that was some of the part the way I got into the NASCAR space through the diversity program through Brandon, who's the head guy of the diversity program. So when I talk to people and I'm dropping these names, people are like, "How do you know these people in NASCAR?" Right. So I dive into something, I go all in, try to learn their history, the background of the sport. So I know I'm not just go out there watching cars go around in circles. I want to know the dynamic, how it works, the fuel, the tires, the engineering of it. So it's a whole, I highly recommend people to attend a NASCAR race. And if you have an opportunity to go in the pit area, I highly recommend that.
Absolutely.
And I may be a little spoiled. I was like, I don't think I can sit in the stands after being in the pits and watching the whole race, but it's a great experience. I look forward to going to more races. I should be at the race in Dover. Plan on being at that race as well. Obviously, they come back here to Vegas at the end of the season. Then the championship is in Arizona at the end of the year. So I'm in it, man. So I'm just trying to see how many races I can make.
I love that, man. Well, listen, I tell you what, I had a blast. You got an open invite. You want to come on after any race you go to, man. You're more than welcome to come on. We can go a little deeper into some football. We can go a little deeper into the racing. And
there you go.
We can have a good time, man. Listen, Mark, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of a busy day to come on and hang out with me. I'll have the show posted later tonight. Tell everybody where they can follow you on social media and keep up with what Mark's got going on.
They can follow me on Twitter at Mark McMillian29, Instagram at McMillian29 as well. And then if you're interested in my olive oils, I have 6 infused olive oils as well that I just launched a month ago on my website at grillandmcmillan.com.
That's a great name. Great name.
Yeah, it all works out, man. I got lucky. I got real lucky, and I'm in the process of launching my barbecue sauce again. That will be available in Vegas, Kansas City, Arizona, and Philadelphia. So my product is kind of growing and expanding in the world. And I did. Kyle did say my season. I gave him some season last year. They said his chef cooked it up before the race, and he really loved my spices. So I need to get him to hold one of my spices just one time.
Hell yeah, man. I love that. That's really cool. Now I have to have you back on because we got to talk more. We got to talk more grill and all that good stuff. All right,
you got to talk barbecue.
Hell
you got to talk barbecue.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. It was an honor to have you on the show, and look forward to keeping up in contact with you. Talk to you soon, man.
All right. Thank you for having me on, and I look forward to coming back.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you. What an awesome addition of catching up with Lap Traffic there. I get there was a lot of crossover today, but I ain't turning down talking to Dan Wetzel. I ain't turning down talking to a former NFL player who was at a NASCAR race this weekend. And if you've listened to the show, I love to talk some football. So there you have that. All right. I think it's time for some Lap Traffic Fantasy. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, let's close this thing out with a little Lap Traffic Fantasy. Just a reminder, get your picks in by 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. Check the website to see who you still have available. Keep the Twitter interaction up using hashtag LTFantasy. Joining me on the line right now is one of the players who scored in the top 3 this week. It is Chad Harrington. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Brendan, how's it going?
I'm good, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Chad, this is your second year in the league?
Yeah, I think it's my second year. I did it back, I believe, the first year of Lap Traffic podcast, and then I took a couple of years off, and now I'm back on.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you back, man.
Thanks. Glad to be back.
It's definitely changed since the first year, that's for sure. What do you think of the format?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot different. I really like how it's segmented now and gives everybody a chance to kind of, make up for if you have a bad first few races, and you can kind of work your way into the playoffs that way. I feel like it's going to really make it a little bit more competitive towards the end.
Absolutely. Well, and now with the truck pick limits and all of that, hopefully this is the finessed bread and butter we've been looking for, and can not have to make too many changes next year. That's my goal. So let's see here, Chad. You nailed it and knocked it out of the park. Bubba Wallace, Justin Allgaier, and Zane Smith. Allgaier obviously lights out at the 1.5 mile track. Zane Smith just lights out wherever. But I got to ask, what made you go with Bubba Wallace this week?
Man, I had a hunch. I know that towards the end of last year, he had a lot of speed on the 1.5 miles. And I knew that if he could keep the fenders on it, I felt like he would have a solid finish. And I kind of joked with my wife. I noticed that I didn't watch much of the truck or the Xfinity race, honestly. But I noticed that Zane came in second and Allgaier second as well. And I kind of looked at my wife Sunday morning and said, hey, I imagine Bubba's probably going to finish second based on these other two. That's just going to be about right.
That'd have been awesome. What was he, fourth?
But hey, I'll take a fourth. Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
Picked up 130 points this week, which is very nice. I had Chastain, Custer, and Eckes who did okay. I got 96 points, but I still got a lot of work to do. But like you said, the way things work, it's possible. And here's the awesome part. 10th place to 40th are only separated by 60 points. And you may think 60 points is a lot. Well, some players, like this week, Joey Logano only got 1 point. And when you look at the average of 30 to 40 points, that attrition will play and come into play. So 60 points is easily made up when we're talking. We're only 3 weeks into the season. So if you're towards the bottom, like myself, don't fret. Keep the picks coming, and who knows where you'll be in a couple weeks. That's for sure. Did you get to watch the Cup race at all?
Yeah, I got to watch, I would say probably 3/4 of the Cup race, and it was a great race. It was just like a Hendrick train at the front, though. It was kind of like you knew that it was going to be a Hendrick car that was going to win after the first stage. It just kind of seemed like it was going to be that kind of day, but it just kind of, which one was it going to be? Was it going to be Larson or Byron? Yeah.
Yep. No, for sure. All right. I'm going to run through the standings here real quick, and then we will make some picks. Currently in first with 331, Eric McCullum. In second with 326, Benton Wilson. In third with 306 is Jeff Clark. Fourth with 300 is Gina. In fifth with 299 is Kristen. In sixth with 297 is Crystal. Seventh with 290 is Brian. Also in seventh with 290 is Matt Dabrowski. In eighth, we got Patty Coy. Ninth, 283, we got Eldon. In 10th is Jeff, Junior's Creations there with 282. Let's see. Chad, you're in 12th, 277. So you're right there, man. You're right there. Another solid week, and you will definitely be in the top 10. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I made quite a jump there. I think I was somewhere in the 20th to 30th range before this weekend.
See, it's so possible. There's so much movement, especially early on right now. And once people start, using up all their picks, if you strategize, you can make up ground. That's for sure. So, alrighty, man. You want to make some picks for this week? All right, Lap Traffic Fantasy. We are headed back west for the final leg of the West Coast swing this weekend in Phoenix, which I think it's safe to say it is no longer Kevin Harvick's playground anymore. He hasn't won there since March of 2018. 9 trips to Phoenix without a win for Kevin Harvick. And honestly, because of things closing out the championship there, all 3 manufacturers have some wins. And so this week, I am going to base my picks off the last couple spring races and not the playoff championship races there at Phoenix, and see if I can't make up some ground. Let's close this thing out with the West Coast swing. Who's going to get to victory lane in the desert? We will find out this weekend. But first, it is time for our picks. Chad, who are you going with in the Xfinity Series?
Well, I think based on the success that John Hunter Nemechek had at Fontana, I think I'm going to carry that over and take John Hunter Nemechek for Phoenix. Sorry.
I like that. I'm going safe because I do need some points. I am going to go with Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity Series this weekend. And let's see, the Cup race Sunday afternoon. What do you got, Chad?
Let's stick with the 20. Let's go with Christopher Bell.
I like that. 20 for 20. Sometimes that pays off, man. That's for sure. A lot of people have this past weekend doubled down on the 8s. They went with Kyle Busch and Josh Berry this past week. So I'm going to go with the 12 of Ryan Newman. Ford is struggling as of late. Or I'm sorry, the 12 of Ryan Newman. The 12 of Ryan Blaney. Ford struggled a little bit this past weekend. Let's see if they can bounce back. He's done pretty well there in the past. So there you have it. All right, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate you. Best of luck the rest of the season, and maybe we'll talk to you again soon.
Definitely. Hope to be back on next week if I can pull off another solid weekend.
Let's do it, brother. All right, man. We'll catch you later. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, that is going to do it for episode 305 of the Lap Traffic Podcast. Check out the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com. Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all at Lap Traffic PC. Huge thanks to Dan Wetzel, Mark McMillian, and Chad Harrington for calling into the show tonight. We'll see. How do you top this? I don't know. It's going to take me a minute, so we'll see what we can come up with for next week. Don't get caught chasing the lucky dog. Tune in each and every week to the Lap Traffic Podcast. See ya.